Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Manny, it's your first time on Industry Update. Introduce yourself. Who the heck are you?
Hello, y'all. I am Manny Recinos. I have been around, been involved in real estate since about 2010. I am now here as team lead in the Decatur office, KW Metro Atlanta. And yeah, I've been involved with a lot of our nonprofits within real estate, kind of in the diversity space and some of the boards and GAR. So if there's ever any questions or interest in that, I can always be a resource for you.
Awesome. Well, here's the deal. Let's jump in.
Let's do
Let me
it.
get my screen up here and
Busy
let's.
week.
All right. So let's start off with Fulton County. So, Fulton County, in the last 7 days, when I get over here, we had 645 inventory. So it actually came down just a little bit. But since the beginning of the year, we started with 681, got up to 720. We're at 645. So we're actually holding with good inventory in Fulton County. What I'm most excited about, we've got 131 active under contract. So if you just look at these numbers, we are climbing, climbing, climbing to that spring market. And 131 active under contract. If I scroll back, we got to go back all the way to August to actually get that level of number of houses under contract. So if I showed you no other number, that number alone should tell you the market's moving. And spring market is moving, and it's moving faster than it did in the last 6 months, in the last 7 days. So that's a really positive sign. 242 on the pending. We had 243 last week, 242 this week, and 198 properties closed in the last 7 days in Fulton County. I think you're going to see a big bump in the next 7 days as this is the last week of the month. Um, and I feel really good about the market building into the spring. I feel like people are coming off the fences. People are buying houses. We feel really positive signs on that. If I jump to DeKalb, and welcome to the mobile office of America, our car. Uh, so if Luke's on backup, if my Wi-Fi doesn't work here, but seem to be doing good. All right, we had 360 active inventory in DeKalb. Same comment. We started with 159, went up into the high threes, and we're holding in the high threes. 18 active under contract in the last 7 days. I actually think these two numbers are switched. I believe we had 82 active under contract. Stephen, if you can fix that, and 18 coming soon. So if my suspicion's correct, we went from 43 to 47, 67, 72 active under contract, 82, and 151 pending. Really, really same comment. Strong spring market building, 101 closed. And just from the beginning of the year, we first week of the year was 57, then 130, 133, 87, 101. We're starting to see some strong numbers show up in 2024, which we've been waiting on, and we're pretty positive with that. Let me hit Cobb County real quick. Come on. 300 in the inventory spot. We've held over 300 in Cobb County over the last 4 weeks, which is a good inventory for Cobb. We had 66 active under contract. It kind of stalled out in Cobb County a little bit on the contracts or houses going under contract, but 178 pending. So under contract is building really good. It just looks like everybody took the week off or something. Um, but 141 on the closings. So all in all, from a numbers perspective, This is spring market buildup, but it's also optimism that 2024 is going to be a good year, and we're starting to see it happen. Now, Manny, I want to go to one other conversation real quick. And I know if you attended the stats event last week, these slides were on there, yet I want to just reiterate this conversation.
Yep.
So, Manny, if you bought a house today for $400,000, the expected equity growth over the next 5 years is $72,405. So just because you simply bought that $400,000 house, in 5 years, you should create $72,405 of wealth, right?
Yep.
But what agents are saying, or not agents, consumers are saying, is, hey, I'm going to wait till the rates come down a little bit more. And I want to wait till they get into the fives.
Yep.
So I actually went, if you look at the fine print, we went to Chat GPT to get this number. Uh, if I bought a $400,000 house, 5% down, $380,000 mortgage, this is the interest cost at 6.5%, and this is the interest cost at 5.5%. So I'm going to pay an extra 3,800 bucks on average per year in interest at a 6.5 versus a 5.5. So over that same 5 year period, it's going to cost me 19 grand if I never refied in interest costs by buying at 6.5. So to somebody, they're going to look at that $19,000 number and go, man, that's extra interest that I don't want to pay.
Yep.
But the truth is, if you put these two conversations together, by buying the house today and the appreciation we know is exponentially more than any kind of interest cost, I actually created $53,000 in the delta of appreciation because I bought it today at a 6.5 instead of waiting to try to buy it at a 5.5, which we don't know when it'll ever show up. But go back for a minute and look, just 1 year, appreciation go to $9,400. Interest expense, $3,800. Even the first year, I come out ahead almost $5,000 by buying that house. And it just exponentially gets greater over time. So I think we got to be able to explain this conversation because
Absolutely.
waiting to buy at a 5.5 is not a smart decision, but it helps if agents have data to back it up. What do you think, Manny?
Absolutely. I mean, this is when I saw those cameras going up in the theater and taking up the photos, right? Because if you are on your game, you have to be able to overcome those objections. It is what we do on a daily basis. And one of the things we've always been able to use in Atlanta is that we have a diverse landscape of businesses coming in. We've got different age groups coming in, different incomes coming in. But this right here puts numbers behind what we're saying. You don't want to miss the appreciation, right? Now, the thing I would add to this, and I had a really great conversation with someone recently about this, or after our stats event, was that this is also where we have to be so good at knowing our database and our clients because it's not everyone can be asked to look at these numbers and go out and buy. You will have clients that unfortunately cannot buy because of that number, right? And that's okay. Those are the ones you've got to stay in front of. Those are the ones you're going to keep in your pipeline. But you have to understand your clients that need this level of explanation because it's not that they can't buy, it's that they're choosing not to buy. We just need to show them these numbers.
Yeah.
It's a big
Um,
opportunity, big opportunity.
it's a big opportunity and it's just helping them see the big picture, right?
Yeah.
And this is only at a $400,000 price. If it was $1 million price, these numbers get much greater.
Yeah,
And obviously it slides based on sales price, but 400,000 is pretty much a median sales price in our areas, so that's why I use that number. But I
yeah,
think it's probably the most relevant conversation with somebody right now to be able to explain it.
it is. And getting comfortable with the conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's not a super easy one. There's levels of it you have to understand, and sometimes we get in our own head about how do I present this, right? Is this too much detail? You That's part of reading our clients and knowing who can really understand this conversation and take advantage of the point we're trying to make here.
Yep. So what do we think interest rates are going to do? I think they're going to bounce around like they always do. One. And two, I think we all had this super optimistic feeling that, man, rates are going to go down really quick as the year started. And then now we're seeing rates that are still just barely under seven. Um, so I found this article, and this is on ING. It says weak inflation and strong growth underscore the Goldilocks U.S. economy. And what they're saying is the U.S. economy continues to confound expectations with U.S. inflation getting close to target. So U.S. government did all their monetary policy to bring inflation down. Check box, we pretty much brought it down. It did what it was supposed to do. But the problem is the consumer is still spending at the same rate, but they're spending based on their savings and credit. And we can't continue that long term. But for now, the consumer refuses to lie down, meaning they're still spending. And that means that's good for the economy. That means they're out there driving GDP and spending money in the economy. The Amazon boxes are still showing up on the doorstep and all that fun stuff. But what the prediction is the Fed will cut the Federal Reserve rate, which we know doesn't necessarily directly translate to mortgage interest, but it indirectly does. But March is looking too early. And if you fall down in this article, and you can read through all this stuff later, but um, they are predicting first quarter GDP growth set to remain robust, meaning a lot of spending in the economy, leaving May the more likely point for the Fed to start pulling the rates down. And they'll likely pull it down 1.5 to 2% range, all that stuff. So, what do I translate this to? Is the spring market's taken off, the consumer is spending, and rates are going to probably float in the mid sixes till about early or late spring. So a consumer buying a house today is not going to get a better rate in March or April, most likely. So the thought of waiting doesn't help them. And actually, prices go faster from January to midsummer in appreciation than they do the rest of the year. So there's no logic in waiting to buy. And you got to be able to explain that. The logic is you should buy now and buy now at today's rates, buy now before prices take off, buy and hold and let price appreciation build equity in your pocket.
Absolutely.
All right. Here's another smart article. Um, Boomers are not moving out of their big homes and why. You can read through this article, but what I want to talk to you about is capital gains. So the way the US government works on capital gains is if you're an individual, you get a $250,000 primary residence waiver on capital gains. So if I'm a single person and I bought a house for $250,000 and I sell it for $500,000, I don't pay any capital gains tax on that $250,000 I made. Or if I'm a couple, I get a $500,000 variance on capital gains tax. Why this is becoming more and more uh, important to understand is because think about price appreciation over the last 5 to 10 years. If you had a $500,000 house 10 years ago, some pockets, it's over $1 million today. So that capital gains tax is starting to play out in people's heads. And one, they don't fully understand it. So let's say, Manny, you bought a house for $500,000 and you're a single tax filer and you sell that house for 850. You had a capital gain of $350,000, right?
Yep.
So as a single tax filer, you get 250 that's given to you without having to pay tax. So you actually would only pay capital gains tax of 15% on the $100,000 over 250. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Bought for 500, I sold for 850. I'm only paying the capital gains on the $100,000 difference between 350 and the 250 that I'm allowed. So okay, so yeah, I'm paying 15 grand on that $100,000 capital gains, but I had equity of $350,000 I just took out of that house. So I think as a real estate professional, you don't have to be a tax expert, but you might get into a conversation. This article specifically talks about baby boomers because they've been sitting on their houses for a while, are concerned about paying capital gains tax. And you got to be able to explain it. What are you
Yeah,
hearing
Brett.
me say, Manny?
When this came up, I got extremely excited. The explanation you just made is exactly how I got started as an investor. I bought my first house, and a KW agent who was my first agent knew how to do the follow-up, right? Came up to me and said, "Do you know the value of your home now? And do you know that you are about to be past capital gains? Let's buy your next house. Let's buy an investment property." That is the training that that agent got. And guess what? I multiplied that and kept it going for a while. The really interesting part of my story now is I cannot recreate that right now. So the way that that agent was able to kind of recreate that story very easily with the numbers being extremely high, it's different. And that's where the appreciation over the 5 year term comes into play now. It's not a in 2 years and 3 years, it's probably a 5 year, you know? And like you talk, now we have the baby boomer situation going on where they're not moving out of their homes. That does create, a concern. You have to be able to explain this information. On top of that, I also noticed there's a lot of younger graduates, right, that are graduating from college. They get that first job. They're actually not, their goal doesn't seem to be to buy that first home immediately. They almost seem to be waiting, because sometimes they feel like they can't afford it, or they seem to be waiting for that home that they're going to buy with their partner whenever they couple up and then buy a home together. That has been an interesting move that I've seen lately, that we probably need to educate people on a little bit more. There's still no reason you can't buy that first condo, right? And talk about the capital gains, how we can use capital gains to work for you. Lots of opportunity out there for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's a Wild West article.
Oh, you love these.
Hey,
All right.
Brett.
Inman said listing of the future will be virtual and multi-purpose. So the subtitle is AI driven personalized listings will include an immersive virtual tour experience, and data will be used not just for sales and marketing, but also restorations, renovations, and appraisals. Um, I struggle with this. So I remember 8 years ago going to a Stefan Swanpool event and him making a statement that we're all going to put on Oculus headsets and that's how we're going to tour homes in the future. And truthfully, the technology is already there, but I'm just not sure the consumer's there. And I do think there will be some consumers that are wanting to, I mean, let's just be honest, like great photography has changed the way we show homes. People look at photography and uh, rule out houses they don't want to look at, things like that, or find houses they want to look at. But I think of like the analogy I would use, Manny, is if I were going to go buy a pair of blue jeans, I realize there's probably some consumers that are just going to go online and say, here's my waist, here's my inseam, buy the jeans. But I'm probably not that consumer. I want to go into the store and try them on, maybe turn around, ask my wife if my butt looks good in it, whatever, right? Like, uh, I'm going to want to try those jeans on. And I believe the consumer still wants to walk into a property and feel something. And I think that the process of finding the properties to go look in uh will will be short. And we've already seen that with photos, and I think technology will make that more fluid. But I don't believe the entire buying process is going to be in a conference room with a headset on
Yeah.
uh and walking through those houses. I do think it'll become more robust, but I don't think it actually removes the real estate experience of me getting in a car with somebody and showing them 10 houses and them and choosing that process. Does that make sense?
It does, but listen, I know you love Wild Wild West combos, so I'm gonna take you there with this one. I think it's absolutely coming, right? I think markets have something to do with it. So I know, again, I do a lot of conferences and go out and, kind of do the national networking. I mean, there are agents in in San Diego, in San Francisco, and right. So there's two things here. One, I think it's probably going to be your client, right? Your client is if they're an investor client from abroad, from across the world, this is the stuff they are already using, right? So they're there. Like you said, our clients here local, they're not going to give up the come and see it themselves. But depending on client-based luxury, I think it's already happening at a very small scale. The second one is I really believe once we give in, the clientele will give in too, right? So once we do make it more accessible, once we do make it more easier to use or easy to navigate, I think it will happen, right? I think it's going to happen. And one of the big ones that I also heard from Inman was the conversation around how we will need to shrink our overhead, right? More than ever, especially with a lot of the stuff that's happening with commissions and all that. And when you put that together, it just means AI is going to become more reliant. So instead of a ton of buyer agents and things like that, this could be the future. But like you said, it's a little wild, wild west. We're going to have to figure out how and when we get there, but it's coming.
Yeah. Let's just jump to AI with the
Yeah.
time we got left.
Yeah.
So, they're talking about AI and what's next for the industry. It's a big conversation. Yet I'm just going to pull the screen down so we can talk.
Yeah.
I remember being in a training environment in 2007, and Facebook had been out. Yet we were talking about Facebook and real estate, and there were agents in the room that would cross their arms and lean back and go, "Facebook's for the kids." You probably heard me say that before. I believe that moment is happening again. I believe there are agents that are crossing their arms and leaning back and saying AI is for the younger generation. AI is not a part of my business. And I think if you fast forward 5 years from now, AI will be absolutely a part of every real estate agent's business. So the challenge is how do we lean in on it? So what is AI in the real estate space? It's a lot of things. It's content creation. I think most people understand what Chat GPT is, and you can ask it to write you a newsletter article. Command will write a listing description. It'll write a what you need to say for an ad for Facebook or Instagram if you're doing those kind of advertisements. It'll write blog posts for you. and I think that content creation is getting rich and more rich. Um, but it's so many other things that are coming really fast. So there's a chat bot, and chat bots, I think to some people, their brain goes, well, nobody's going to want to talk to a computer, blah, blah, blah. Yet I will tell you, you don't realize how many chatbots you actually talk to in life unknowingly,
Yep.
right? I've told a story about Uber and leaving a laptop in the back of an Uber. There's no phone number on the Uber app. You're talking to somebody online about, hey, can you call the driver? Tell them I left my laptop. Can they bring it back to me? Blah, blah, blah. It's a chatbot, guys. It's not
Yep.
a person on the other end typing. And so I think from a lead generation standpoint, I think from a lead conversion standpoint, the chatbots that are rolling out, I think we're going to see a lot of it at Family Reunion um, in Vegas, are going to become really big. But there's another thing, Manny, that I'm really excited about, which is called the technical term is called predictive analytics. So we've always had third party companies that you could say, hey, I want to take my neighborhood, these 400 homes, and they would run a predictive analytic that said, out of these 400 homes, these 50 homes are most likely to move in the next 2 years based on whatever formula was created. We've always had that. But now what Command's rolling out is if I have 500 people in my database, my sphere of influence, the predictive analytics is going to tell me out of those 500, these 70 are most likely to move in the next 2 years. And we've never had predictive analytics on our database. And that will be in our agents' hands probably in the next 90 days. And it's really, really slick. So to an agent that hasn't put the effort into their database, you're going to get left behind.
Yep.
Database is going to be more and more a big part of the future of a real estate agent's business, and AI is going to light that thing on fire.
Brett, what's crazy is this is what KW's been teaching forever. It's so much of this industry, why I love it, is it's back to basics. Things will evolve, things will change, but don't we always preach you have got to build that database. You have to have that database at your fingertips because when these things are introduced, boom, that's when you get to take advantage. It's too late to try and build it because you're now impressed because of AI and what it can do that needed to already have been there, right?
Yeah,
That's the opportunity. That's
perfect.
why.
Are
Yeah.
there any questions over anything we covered today?
Yes, I've got a question.
Yeah.
So back on the taxes, the one example there said that after the balance there was like a $1.4 million left on the table after the $500,000 uh what so you're looking at about an extra $200,000 in taxes for that person that they've got to pay, which is a lot of money. But where, if they don't sell now, what are they saving? I mean, they're going to have to do it at some point. What's their logic there? I'm walking away with 1.4. Do I walk away with 1.2 instead, or why is that stopping them?
Well, it equity in the perception is it's still my money if it's in the house. The minute I sell, I got to pay taxes. Well, you're going to pay those taxes whether you pay it today or you pay it
Right.
10 years from now. Um, and you'll never get access to your money until you pay the taxes.
So aren't people thinking about that, or is it just that
Well,
idea?
I think that's the consultation, Jeff, is
Okay.
uh, we're becoming tax accountants and psychologists and everything else. And that's where our value is really becoming more and more uh, consultative in the real estate space. You didn't have capital gains conversations 10 years ago because price appreciation never pushed the value of those houses over those limits. But price appreciation in the last decade has made a capital gains conversation on primary residences uh, a, a newer conversation. And I think you got to be able to consult them through it.
And Jeff, I think you just opened up exactly what we've been talking about too. This is the future of real estate is relational, right? Having those partners that can sit with you and educate correctly, I think is huge.
Yep. Vicky said, agree. I'm consulting more and more on these topics. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we start and end on time. There's your update for the week. See you next week.
See y'all.
Later.